Morning, my friends. I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this wonderful Thursday morning. I'm telling you, could it get any better knowing that God's mercies have been made new just for us on this great day that He's given us? And I hope that you'll use those mercies wisely as you reach out to the people around you. But right now we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And verse 24 kind of summarizes what we've been talking about. Before I start there, though, think about this. Have you ever been bombarded with questions? Questions that maybe you have an answer for, and questions maybe you don't have an answer for. If you've had children, you've been there, right? You know, why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? Yeah, and the questions just keep coming. Well, these Corinthian Christians had some pretty significant questions for the Apostle Paul. Some of them he was able to answer because he had a word from God about it. And some of them he had to say, listen, this is just from my heart. I don't know if this is from God or not, but this is from my heart. And I got to tell you, I would trust Paul's heart above just about anybody else's, okay? And so what he says, I think we should take as gospel. Well, not as gospel, but as truth. And he says, brethren, verse 24, let each one remain with God in that state in which he was called. Now, here's what he was talking about. If you are circumcised as a Jew, you don't have to become uncircumcised, if that's even possible. If you're uncircumcised as a Gentile, you don't have to become circumcised to become a believer. If you're married, stay married. If you're single, stay single. If you're married to an unbeliever, if they're willing to stay, stay. He says, understand, you don't have to change those situations just because you become a Christian. Now, if you're in a sinful relationship, you ought to be convicted of the Holy Spirit and change that. That goes without saying. But listen to what he says next, verse 25. Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment from the Lord, yet I give judgment as one whom the Lord in his mercy has made trustworthy. It's what I just said. We can trust what Paul has to say. I suppose, therefore, that this is good because of the present distress, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loosed. Are you loosed from a wife? Do not seek a wife. But even if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such will have trouble in the flesh, but I would spare you. Now here's what he's talking about here, just what I said. If you're married, stay married. If you're single, stay single. But remember what he said back up here earlier. He said if you are unmarried and you cannot resist the temptation to be involved in a sexual relationship, then you should get married, because it's better to marry than to burn with the passion that's within and stumble into sin. But otherwise, he says, as God gives you that grace, stay unmarried. Stay celibate. That's the spiritual gift. But look what he says in verse 29. But this I say, brethren, the time is short, so that from now on, even those who have wives should be as though who had none, those who weep as though they did not weep, those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice, those who buy as those who did not possess, and those who use this world as not misusing it, for the form of this world is passing away. Wow. Well, here's the thing. Paul truly believed that the return of Christ was imminent. All of the things that were going on around him, the persecution, all of the tribulation, all of that sounded a lot like what Jesus had talked about in his little apocalypse in Matthew chapter 24. He believed that Jesus was going to return any moment, just like Jesus taught the apostles to believe, just as we say that we should believe. And I do believe it. I believe with all of my heart that Jesus could return at any moment, and I believe he will return in my lifetime. And that's why we need to live that way. We need to live in such a way, if we are married or unmarried, that we are compassionate and passionate about reaching lost people, giving everything that we have to serving God in the kingdom, not neglecting our families, not pushing them aside. Because understand, if we lose our family, we lose our testimony, we lose everything. But to serve with them, to help them to understand that passion and to serve as well, to reach lost people with everything that we have, because that's why we're left here. Listen, if God wasn't expecting us to do the work of the Great Commission, to go into all the world and make disciples, then at the moment of our salvation, he would just take us on out of here. We wouldn't have a purpose, but we do. We're to go into the world and help the lost to know Jesus and help young believers to become strong believers so that they can join in the work as well. That's the whole point behind this. Think about that today. Are you serving in the way that God has called you to serve? Through ministry, through missions, through evangelism, through discipleship, being a mentor, just loving people. Be blessed. I'll see you back here tomorrow.